Hi everyone, a very warm welcome from Sydney. We are dialing in, myself and my colleague Shannon, who you can see in the other window there, from actually a very close by location because we're sort of neighbors in Sydney. And I have to say, as nice as it is to kind of come into work and not work in my pajamas for a change, it is still a very much of a different experience to be joining virtually rather than being able to interact with all of you throughout the event at SiteMinder stand and share some of our latest goodies and merch. And I'm actually out of all the pens and notebooks myself. So during the chat today, I'm one of the hosts, and my co-host is my colleague Shannon.
Hi Marika, how are you? Nice to be together apart with you. We're actually in the same space today, but we're following physical distant protocols and we're on opposite ends of the same space. Hi Marika. Nice to be together apart with you.
Even with arms spread very wide, we're still far enough from one another, so that's all good. We're going to take about 15 minutes for our chat today, and what we are going to cover is what has changed, how have things been going. Clearly they haven't really been going too perfect so far this year, but what we want to kind of share with you is what we have observed happening across different channels that we work with here in SiteMinder, and different production trends that we're seeing across in different markets. So some do kind of look alike across different regions, but some do not. And so for that reason, we will focus mainly on what's happening in Australia and New Zealand, and also what does it actually mean.
Yeah, so what we want to share with you is what we're seeing and observing in terms of trends across SiteMinder channels, and then maybe a bit of translation as far as what does that all mean, what to make of it all, and how can you apply these learnings and observations in your own properties and in your own hospitality businesses.
So yeah, the new normal. It's definitely been a bit of a road to adapt to what the new normal actually is. And 2020 has been quite a wild ride for us in Australia, having moved swiftly into the crisis situation following the bushfires. That being said, the kind of levels of resilience and adaptability that we're seeing in hospitality industry, and how quickly hoteliers are kind of learning to pivot and reimagine their business, as well as kind of finding new ways to do business and to attract guests, is something that definitely never fails to amaze me. So this new normal,
we're adaptable as a species, right? We always say that. We're really good at that, hotel people. We can adapt.
Yeah.
We're nimble, flexible.
And so the new normal, one thing being the need for flexibility of policies and rates. We're definitely seeing a lot more of an uptake in rates that are fully flexible, because nobody is kind of sure any longer that they will definitely be able to stay. With that, there's the rise of staycations and people looking to book somewhere that's a little bit closer to home so that they can return easily within a day or so. So this kind of radius of an around of a 3-hour drive or so. Another one being experience differentiators, and that means what can be included in terms of added value or a policy change at a property. One example being being able to bring your pet along, and Shannon falls into that market category.
My favorite market segment, because that's my market segment.
I don't know if we can divide it into even kind of lesser categories of types of pets that you can bring, who travels with a pet parrot versus who travels with a dog. But the other example of this would be reimagining the space at the property as well. So how kind of far apart we have to be spread in a public space. What does that mean for the hotel lobby? What does that mean for the breakfast room? And finally, the expectations of cleanliness and how those policies are changing for hotels that are branded or part of a larger chain versus properties falling into the alternative accommodation category, and how as a hotelier you can convince the guest that the property is kind of coronavirus proof.
That's right. And the other types of extremes that we're seeing as far as a shift in customer behavior in terms of searching and booking is this sort of two extremes of searching, booking, and arriving within 24 hours, and then as far out as 6 months of arrival, and not a lot of activity in between. And so people are keen to get out of the space that they may have been working in and closed in for some time, and they want to just make a trip and go somewhere quickly, maybe before conditions change again, which recent history has showed us it may. And so people are actually searching, making a reservation, and arriving within 24 hours. As cray-cray as that might sound, that's what's happening. But then at the other end of the extreme change in behaviors, we see people, which makes sense, they want to have something to look forward to. And so people are searching and not just dreaming, but actually booking holidays that are on a flexible guarantee payment policy for 6 months out. So really short lead time and really long lead time. And so the other sort of extreme that we see from a segmentation perspective is that as we did originally expected, we thought that, you know, the industry and even people like me were forecasting and predicting that business travel in the corporate sector would return first. And that's where we would see the sort of resurgence and rebound initially. And in fact, that's not what's happening. It's leisure, personal holidays, little staycations, like Marika mentioned, is the types of segment and searches that we're seeing rebounding first. And so really important as a hotelier that you have packages and products that resonate with those types of travelers. And then the other sort of polar opposite that we see is luxury and high-end properties, and then also the value and budget type properties. And again, a lot less activity searching and booking in between. And so as a property manager, a hotelier of a property that might be mid-scale or somewhere in between luxury and value or budget property, important to make sure that you actually have a product offering distributed in all your channels that might resonate with those two extreme behaviors.
Absolutely, and so that's what we want to kind of cover as well. What does this actually mean for hoteliers every day now? This how to adapt to this new normal, how to essentially pivot to the situation, because you know, despite of the kind of initial predictions of how to get back on track, this isn't really the kind of world that we're living in any longer. And it is more about looking at the longer term future that has nothing kind of to resemble the recent past of the, 12 or even 6 months ago for that matter.
That's right. And so we know for sure that historically, and especially now more than ever, in periods of low demand, or as some properties we see in some markets, it's no demand, it's all about conversion. So if you have a chance of recovery and rebound, and any element of reservation revenue cash flow at the moment, it's all about conversion. And so we have to create and distribute products to new segments, adapting for new reasons to travel with this sort of evolved customer expectations at the first point of contact. And so what we want to make sure that we do is have all of the questions answered at whatever point of contact your customer first engages with you. So if your past, current, and future potential customers want to make a reservation on one of your OTA partners or your own direct booking engine, or by telephone, or by web chatbot on your booking engine, by whatever channel they want to engage with you and get their questions answered and search and book, that's where all the answers have to be. And that's where all of your product offerings have to resonate with the right segments at the right point of contact, and the customer gets to choose which channel that's going to be. So it's all about conversion. And also adaptability, as Marika mentioned, knowing who your competition is and keeping laser focus on those competitors. And a lot may have changed in that space over the last few weeks, months, certainly in the last year. I know a lot of properties that are looking at their competitor product offering compared to same period last year, or before the first 6 months of 2020. And they're finding that their comp set is completely changed. They're not necessarily competing with the same types of properties.
Or even in fact of the changing levels of supply and the
That's
properties
right.
reopening. That's something that historically we didn't have to look so closely because things didn't change this quickly. So this is definitely a lot more of a fast-paced reality now.
Absolutely right. And you know, I know proactive may be an overused word, but it's just so important to be proactive and proactively study your lead time and be curious about reservation and customer behavior by channel.
And so the key takeaways of today's session, there's, you know, kind of maybe a few bits of homework that we can share with you, or perhaps you have done all of it already. If so, then, you know, happy days, and just wait for all these guests coming knocking on your door.
Yeah, and you know, where we said before, it's always been important as a hotelier to keep your content current and your description pages in GDS updated, policies. That's always been important, and it's always been best practice or a recommendation to do that quarterly. Honestly, I don't know a lot of hoteliers that actually do it that often, but it's less now about a schedule of when to do it and making sure that as your conditions change and as your policies and your information change, that gets updated in all your channels, like as a matter of top emergency, urgent. And of course, when you do adapt and apply very flexible reservation requirements, you want to make sure you really shine a light on that in all of your points of distribution so that it's loud and clear to your potential customers how easy you are to do business with. And if you're going to obsess about anything other than everything else we've already said, you want to obsess about market data and what trends you might be seeing on the horizon, because it's nice to have things to look forward to, right, Marika?
Absolutely. So in terms of the kind of horizon, thanks for the excellent cueing in there, Shannon. Something that kind of lastly but not leastly wanted, or the other way around, sorry. Something that we wanted to share with you as well is the recent addition to data set that we have released with SiteMinder team, which is actually absolutely free to access for absolutely everybody. You don't have to be our customer to be able to take a look at this. And it's a really good little tool to take a look at booking momentum in terms of bookings in recent past, as well as bookings that are on the horizon and what's kind of happening in the near future. You have kind of an underlying production graph for global trend, but you can actually drill into our more local market levels, and as well as a few other countries by comparison. So if we compare, for example, Australia and New Zealand here, you can compare up to 8, and then that will give you multiple axes in terms of production rate, and that's a difference year on year. Going back to January, and then it goes as far as just the very last week. So you can see the very recent past. Now, in Australia, because our customer base is quite substantial here, you actually can drill into the city level as well, and same goes for New Zealand. So that's in terms of the recent past. Also included split between domestic and international arrivals. I think that's pretty clear that that split is changing, because obviously we don't really have much volume of international arrivals coming in. However, historically, Australia has been strong in terms of domestic volumes and domestic travel anyway. So that's a bit of a positive. Now, if we flick over to the future bookings for trends in the kind of near future, you can see the volumes of bookings that have been made in the last couple of weeks, and you know, that kind of reaffirms Shannon's point to this kind of polarizing trend of bookings that are being made into very, very close future dates, so very short lead time, or very, very far out. And so this graph is showing you just bookings made purely in the last 14 days, and then this one, the overall level of bookings. So do take a closer look when you have the time. As I said, it's absolutely free to access, and anybody can take a look at this type of data, also compare across different markets, to have that, you know, kind of additional bedtime reading and reasons to you know, obsess over something while you're,
I would actually recommend that everyone make the time to use this, because one of my favorite things about it is that it helps inform a fact and data-based forecast rather than just the feels like factor, because what it feels like at the moment in a lot of markets can be, you know, pretty daunting. And so, you know, we've been talking about forecasting and how impossible it is to forecast in a hotel these days. And to a certain degree, that's true. But when you have arrivals and market data to look at what's actually being booked, even though it might not be direct bookings yet into your property, this actually gives you some facts to actually inform a forecast.
That's it. And that kind of really brings us to the end of our chat today. Hope that you have enjoyed spending that little time with us. It was definitely great to have the chat, and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.